The page is shaking in his hand when I get to him, and the first thing he says isn't hello. Don't let them have it. Hask Doran is dying in a bunk 3 sizes too small for a man who spent 30 years folded into reactor crawlspaces, and his fingers are white around a single sheet of paper, water-stained. One corner torn clean off, like something grabbed it once and didn't get to keep it. I've known him 11 years and I've never seen him hold anything like he's holding that page. Hold them off, he says, just long enough. I don't ask who them is. I already hear the boots in the corridor behind me, even and unhurried, the particular rhythm of people who know they don't need to rush because nobody runs from the ledger wardens. Not on a ferry, not with planetfall 6 hours out. The Havern Relay is not a warship. It's 11,000 civilians in a hull built for cargo, retrofitted twice, limping toward a colony world on a reactor that's outlived its certification by a decade. I run the transport hold on Deck 9, bunks, ration lockers, the kind of work nobody photographs. Doran ran the reactor. Ran it alone the last 4 years, after the second engineer transferred off, and the company never sent a replacement because the company assumed, correctly, that nobody would notice until something broke. Something is breaking now, just not the reactor. Citizen Doran. The warden fills the doorway before I turn around. Kale are tall in a way that makes every room feel built wrong, joints stacked too high, a voice that comes out level no matter what it's saying. Pre-arrival audit. All unverified personal documentation is to be surrendered for destruction prior to planetfall registry. This is page 7 of an unlogged set. It's mine, Doran says. It is unverifiable. The warden doesn't move closer. Doesn't need to. Ledger Law, Section 4. Personal records absent of registry stamp constitute noise in the Colonial Archive and will not transit. I look at the page in his hand for the first time, really look, and it isn't a letter. It isn't a photograph of someone he lost. It's a column of tally marks, 4N cross, running corner to corner in pencil gone soft from being touched too many times, and at the bottom, underlined twice, 111. What is that, I say, and I mean it as a real question, not a stall. Days, he says. Days I held core temp inside tolerance with no second engineer and no parts request approved. Every one of them. I started counting on day 9 because I figured nobody else would. The warden's translation collar gives a small administrative click, the sound it makes when it's filing something rather than answering it. The reactor logs are registered and intact. This page duplicates registered data informally. It is redundant and will be destroyed with the rest of the unlogged set. It's not redundant, Doran says. The logs say core temp, they don't say who was standing there. I've heard 100 men say a version of that sentence and mean nothing by it. Doran means something by it. His hand is shaking too hard to hold a pen, and he is trying anyway, because somewhere in the last hour he decided that the only way this page survives is if it exists twice, and he can't make a second copy himself. Not anymore. Tomas. He's not looking at the warden, he's looking at me. Copy it. Before they take the original, every mark, I'll tell you the count. The warden's collar clicks again. Citizen Idrin holds no archival authority. A handwritten duplicate carries no more registry standing than the original. I didn't ask you, Doran says, and for a man who can't sit up without help, it comes out steady. I take the page. My hands aren't shaking, and that surprises me more than it should, given everything else in the room is. I find a ration manifest blank on his shelf, flip it over, and start drawing the marks the way he's counting them out, 4N cross, and he watches my pencil like it's the only thing in the universe still doing what he tells it to. Day 1, he says. The coolant relay started cycling wrong and I caught it before the alarms did. Day 2, I figured out why manufacturing tolerance, not damage, which meant it'd do it again. Day 3, I started sleeping in the crawlspace because 4 minutes warning wasn't enough if I was 3 decks away. The warden hasn't left. It's recording. I can see the faint blue wash of its optic doing what Kale optics do, building an official transcript of an unofficial document, which is, I think, the single most absurd thing I will see today, and I work transport on a colony ferry. I see absurd things daily. Day 40, Doran says. I requisitioned a part. Denied non-essential during transit. Day 41, I built the part out of 2 parts that weren't it. Day 56, his breath catches, not from grief, from the simple physical cost of talking this long. Day 56, I missed my daughter's broadcast because the relay needed both hands, and I figured I'd rather miss one broadcast than 11,000 people miss the ground. I keep drawing marks. 4N cross. The manifest is filling up faster than I expected a man's whole secret war could fill a piece of cargo paper. Citizen Doran. The warden hasn't moved from the doorway, but its collar clicks again, faster this time, the rhythm of a system flagging an anomaly it doesn't have a category for. This narration is being appended to an unauthorized record. I am required to note that for the registry. Note it, Doran says, and keeps going like the interruption cost him nothing. Day 63, a stress crack in the outer housing. I didn't report it. If I report it, they pull the reactor for inspection at the next relay station, and we sit dead in transit for 11 days while 11,000 people eat through reserve rations that don't stretch that far. I welded it myself at 0300 and told the bridge the readings were nominal, because they were, after I fixed it. That is a falsified maintenance entry, the warden says. That's a ship that made it to day 64, Doran says. I don't stop drawing. 4N cross. My hand has found a rhythm that matches his voice, and some part of me that isn't thinking clearly is grateful for it, because if I slow down I'm going to start hearing how short his breaths are getting between numbers. Day 80, he says. Cooling rail patch failed at the seam I'd already patched twice. I was alone in the crawl space and there wasn't a third patch left in supply, so I used the housing bolt from my own toolkit, the one with my initials stamped in it, because it was the only piece of metal on that deck rated for the pressure. It's still in there. Whoever opens that reactor for scrap on some other ship, 40 years from now, is going to find HD stamped into a part that was never meant to hold a reactor together, and it held. The warden's optic flickers, just barely, the closest thing I've seen one of them do to hesitating. Day 91, Doran says. I started writing this page, not because I thought anyone owed me anything for it, because I realized if I died in that crawl space and nobody had a number, the company report would just say reactor performance nominal throughout transit, and that would be the whole story. 11,000 people would land on solid ground never knowing a single thing about how close it came, on how many separate days, to not happening. He stops to breathe, 3 slow pulls that sound like work. Day 103, he says, quieter now, like the number itself costs more than the others. I started timing my own pulse against the relay cycle because the company physician cleared me for duty without checking, and I knew the crawlspace air wasn't doing me any favors after 4 years. I didn't put that one on the page until tonight. Didn't want it to look like I was asking for credit for dying. I wasn't. I was just keeping the count honest. Citizen Idrin. The warden's voice has gone almost careful. I am obligated to inform you that continued transcription of testimony deemed inadmissible may itself be flagged for review at planetfall. Flag it, I say without looking up, 4N cross. 104, Doran says, was this morning. I knew before the monitor did. I've spent 30 years learning what a body sounds like when something's failing inside it, mine included, and I wanted the page finished before anyone official decided it wasn't worth finishing. Citizen Doran. The warden's voice doesn't change register, but it does step half a pace forward, and that's new. The original document must be surrendered now. Planetfall registry closes at the 6-hour mark. This is final notice. Doran doesn't let go of the page. He looks at the manifest in my hands instead, at the column of marks not yet finished, and something in his face settles, the particular kind of calm that doesn't come from winning, just from knowing exactly what's about to happen and choosing not to fight the parts that don't matter. "Take it," he says to the warden. "Take the original." "Hask." "Take it," he says again, and his hand finally opens. The warden lifts the water-stained page with 2 fingers, careful in a way that has nothing to do with respect and everything to do with chain of evidence protocol, and turns for the corridor. I hear the soft mechanical sigh of a destruction unit somewhere down the hall, the kind that handles unverifiable noise, 11 times a shift without anybody in the room blinking. "How many left?" I say, because my hand is still moving, and I need him to keep talking or I'm going to stop being able to hold the pencil steady myself. 105, he says, was the day the second relay failed during a meal shift and nobody but me knew it happened. 106, I stopped sleeping in my own bunk entirely. 107. He gets to 109 marks before his voice goes from words to breath. I don't stop drawing. I've watched men die in this hold before: exposure, old age, the slow attrition of a ship that's been traveling longer than it was built to, and there's always a moment where the room understands before the monitors do. This is that moment. His eyes are still on the manifest, not on me, on the count. "Hask," I say, "you're at 109. He doesn't answer that. What he says with what's left is, "Don't round it." Then he's gone, and the room is very quiet, and I am sitting on a transport hold cot with a torn ration manifest covered in pencil tally marks that stop too short of where they're supposed to. I know the rest. He told me every day in order, and I have a transport orderly's memory for numbers because counting bunks and ration packs is most of what I do. I finish it myself, 110. The last full day, smaller fights and smaller saves that don't make a log entry but make a man. 111 today, the day he handed his proof to the people who called it noise and let them burn it, because he'd already done the only part that mattered, which was making sure it existed somewhere they couldn't reach. I underline it twice the way he had it, the way it deserves. The warden comes back 40 minutes later for the body, and pauses at the doorway when it sees the manifest in my hands. That document was not authorized for duplication. "It's not a duplicate," I say. "He told me a story, I wrote it down. That's not against any law you've got." It studies me with that flat blue optic, weighing whether transport orderlies have ever been worth arguing with, and apparently decides we haven't. "The original record is destroyed per Section 4. It says, like that settles something." "Good," I say. "It already did its job. It kept 11,000 people warm for 4 years nobody's going to thank him for. The marks were just where he kept count since the company wouldn't." It leaves. I don't think it understood me, not really, not the part that matters, that a man who counts his own unwitnessed sacrifices in pencil, because no one assigned him to, isn't doing it for the record. He's doing it so that, on the day his hands finally stop working, there's a number to hand to someone who will keep it moving. The wardens have a law for documents. They don't have one for that. The Havern relay breaks atmosphere 6 hours later, same as scheduled, reactor humming the same steady hum it's held since long before I knew Doran's name. I'm on the observation deck for it, the manifest folded in my coat pocket against my chest, and when the colony horizon comes up gold and ordinary through the viewport, I do the only thing that feels like it's mine to do. I take out a pencil, and under the number I write his name. Not for the registry, for the next man who finds it,